I'm Carey Danen, and I am the clerk for the City of De Pere. One of my most important job responsibilities is administering elections for the city. And my team and I take that responsibility very seriously. We put a lot of hard work and effort into making sure that our elections are safe and secure and transparent. Voter confidence in this process is our top priority. And so today I wanted to share some information with you about how we make sure that the process is safe and accurate for voters, and share some information with you that hopefully you'll find useful and will help you feel comfortable about voting in elections in De Pere. So one of the questions that I get a lot is how we make sure that our voter rolls are accurate and up to date, and that only eligible voters are registered in the city. In Wisconsin, we're lucky that we have a statewide computer system that maintains voter records, and it has a lot of features in place that help us do that. For example, one of the things that it does is connects to the DMV. Because voters are required to provide their driver's license or ID number when they register, when we input that in the system, it then talks to the DMV, confirms that that is an accurate ID number, and alerts us if it's not. Another thing that the system does for us is it talks to the Department of Health and Human Services, which maintains death records. So we get regular updates from that agency so that we can remove any deceased voters from our roll. I can assure you that there are not large numbers of dead people voting in the state. We check those updates regularly from the state health department, and specifically it is part of our protocol to check that immediately before an election. You know, and unfortunately if someone has passed away shortly before an election day, we can make sure that we catch that. Mostly talking about absentee ballots in that scenario, I have every confidence that we are keeping that information as accurate and up to date as we can. The other thing that it does is talks to the Department of Corrections so that we receive updates about any active felons, because anybody who is currently serving an active felon sentence is not eligible to vote. Lastly, the state of Wisconsin belongs to a program called ERIC, which is a nationwide group of states that have decided to work together to maintain their voter roll accuracy. There's 25 states that belong to it, and so they, through a secure system, share DMV registrations and voter registrations. So when we get an update from a different state that one of our voters has possibly moved there, then we can reach out to that voter, confirm it, and deactivate their Wisconsin registration. In summary, with the voter rolls, we do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that our records are always as up to date and accurate as possible, and just make sure that people have confidence in the accuracy of that information. All of our election data on the voting tabulators is heavily encrypted, and we have chain of custody protocols in place when we are transporting those encrypted memory sticks from the polling places to the county, and we use tamper-evident seals on the security bags so that data cannot be tampered with. And we also have security seals on the equipment itself. So once it is programmed, we know that nobody has tried to tamper with it. The voting equipment itself, we use the DS200 tabulator from a company called ES&S, and that equipment has been certified at the state level and the federal level. The equipment itself, we store between elections in our police department, so it is an area that cannot be accessed by anyone without authorization. The voting tabulators are tested before every election. We call that our public test. The public is welcome to come and watch, and we create a test deck of ballots with a different number of votes for every candidate on the ballot so that we can confirm that it is voting and attributing those votes accurately. In addition, after every general election in the fall, the state conducts, or has the municipal clerks conduct an audit of the voting equipment. So they randomly select 10% of all reporting units in the state, and we've been selected twice since I've been the clerk. And then what we do is reassemble a group of poll workers, and we hand count those ballots to confirm that the vote totals on the encrypted memory sticks were accurate. So a lot of double checks and balances that we have in place. So I have complete confidence in the accuracy of our equipment. One of the questions that I get most often is about the safety and security of voting absentee and mailing absentee ballots. So I wanted to take a few minutes and just go over the procedures that we have in place and explain the process about how absentee ballots are issued and returned, and hopefully give you a sense of assurance about voting absentee. Every absentee ballot that we send out has a unique tracking number, and that way we can confirm one-to-one. We issued one ballot to a voter, and that voter returned one ballot. And the other thing is we have procedures in place for recording when those ballots come back to us. They are stored in a secured, locked area until Election Day. We also double check them, we review them twice to make sure that they are complete, because in order to count an absentee ballot, you have to have the voter's signature, a witness's signature, and a witness address. So staff reviews that when we receive the ballot in, and we also have the poll workers verify that again on Election Day before they process the ballot. On Election Day, our absentee ballots are processed by a separate group of poll workers, and we call that our central count. Some communities send all those ballots out to the polls and have the poll workers try to process them in between voters, but we have been doing central count for quite a few years now, and it works very well for us. When the poll workers process all of our ballots on Election Day, they are working in pairs to, like I said, review the ballot, make sure that it is sufficient to be counted. They record the fact on the log that it has been returned and is going to be cast in the tabulator. And occasionally an absentee ballot will have to be remade. And an example of that is our military voters, because they could be overseas and can receive their ballot by email, so they have to print that out and mail it back to us. And we can't just send a regular piece of paper through the voting tabulator. So two poll workers work together to remake that ballot and initial it to show which workers did that process. In most cases, when we have poll workers from appointed political parties, we make sure that it's one worker from each party who is working together to remake those ballots when that's needed. And finally, after the election, we have to record every voter's participation in our statewide system. And that's called our reconciliation process. And so we have to confirm that the total number of voters and the total number of ballots matches. And if not, then we have to explain to the state why we had a discrepancy. This isn't specific to absentee ballots, but an example of that could possibly be at the polls. It has happened on occasion that a voter will change their mind and walk out of the polling place with their ballot without having cast it in the tabulator. So that is documented, so we know that and can explain that in our reconciliation process, why we have one less ballot. So with our absentee ballots, whether they are a mailed ballot or during our in-person absentee timeframe, which is the 2 weeks before an election, where people can come to City Hall and cast an absentee ballot, all absentee ballots that are received are counted on Election Day. It is not something that we wait until the end of the day or only count them if the race is very close. Every single absentee ballot that meets the requirements and is a sufficient valid returned ballot gets counted on Election Day. We have separate tabulator machines, that we keep here at City Hall, and so we have the results tapes from those and the voter participation, just as we do for the voters at the polls. So the main thing is I want to assure you that absentee voting is safe and secure. Every single ballot is tracked from the time that we get the voter request and send it out until it is counted on Election Day. Our duty is to keep our elections safe, fair, and transparent. We take that responsibility very seriously, and I know that myself and my staff and the poll workers take a lot of pride in the hard work that we put into our elections. Our poll workers, who are your friends and neighbors, go through training when they first become a poll worker and before elections when there are any changes or updates, and so they are well prepared to successfully hold elections. Finally, every step of our process is open to the public. So I invite you to come to a public test of the voting equipment, be an observer at the polls on Election Day or at Central Count. Come into the clerk's office and ask questions. We're happy to show you around and explain our process more to you. You could even become a poll worker, which is probably the best way to learn about all of the steps that we have in place to run successful elections.